A leader was strongly criticized in public, in front of the eyes of all people. The accusation and critique was fair. What did the leader do when he heard about it? He got angry, frustrated, and wanted to disappear. Of course, I'm talking about Torah and Moses. All parallels with real life are totally coincidental. Many times in Torah narrative, people are very unhappy with leaders. The nation, the Jewish people, are often called stiff-necked people, always unhappy with whatever happens. And this week Torah portion is one of such moments, or perhaps one of the strongest moments of critique of a leader. You can't make it up, right? The rebellion of Korach. This is a well-known story about the challenge to Moses' leadership. Korach, together with Datan and Aviram, two leaders, all three from priestly family, so from within the what people would call now, from within the elite of Jewish people, and hundreds of others publicly declared that all the Israelites, not just Moses and Aaron, should be considered holy. They accused Moses and Aaron of acting holier. You know that's in a famous phrase that all animals are free, but some are freer. Or all animals are equal, but others are more. Some are equal. And that's basically what they accuse Moses of. That yes, and this is how it looks in the Torah. So Korach, son of Korach ben Yitzhar, and son of Kohat, son of Levi, so from the Levites, the Levites family, betook himself, among with Datan and Aviram, sons of Eliav, and son of Pelet, descendants of Reuben, to rise up against Moses, together with 250 Israelis, chieftains of the community. And probably when the 250 people gather together, we can imagine how it sounds, because we can hear it now from the other side of the road. So it sounds powerful and quite probably scary. They assembled, and they were men of repute, reputable people. They combined against Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far, for all the community are holy, all of them, and the Eternal One is in their midst. Why then do you raise yourself above God's congregation?" So on the one hand, Korach is right, is fair. It's an important message. We're told in the book of Leviticus that Kedoshim tiyu ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem, which means you shall be holy, for I, the Eternal One, your God, is holy. So this is addressed to all people, to all the nation. All of us should be holy. And what the first thing that Moses does when he hears Korach's speech, and this is what I would like to focus on, Moses' reaction, not the critique of Korach. What does he do? When Moses heard this, he fell on his face. What's the first thing you do when you hear an unpleasant truth? An allegation against you and your actions? Many people, perhaps most people, become defensive and try to justify their actions. But I wanted to do good, right? I wanted to be good. And perhaps fight back, accuse others. So when Moses fell upon his face, that's my question that I am asking myself. What was it? Was it a sign of powerlessness? Was it frustration? Was it a way to control his anger? Or perhaps it was a moment of silence and reflection. So what was it? Why did he do that? Torah doesn't tell us. Torah just tells this. So the 11th century Torah scholar Rashi interprets it in the following way. He says, first of all, he puts it in the context of the Torah narrative. He says, this was already the 4th time Israelites offended Moses. The first 3 were, the first one, when they built and started to worship the golden calf. The second, the case when people complained and wanted more food and wanted to return to slavery in Egypt. And the third one, the story of the spies, when spies didn't trust God or Moses and came back with a negative report. So in all previous cases, Rashi notes that it's written that when Moses heard the complaint, his first reaction was to speak with God. And then, when God got angry with people, Moses defended them. Rashi noticed the difference that now, at the rebellion of Korach, Moses didn't pray, didn't speak with God, didn't seek God's advice. He just fell on his face. Rashi cites a midrash, a parable. Well, it's often the case to understand something. The Jewish tradition brings up the parable. And this parable about a king and his son, the prince. The prince did something wrong against his father, the king, and prince's friend spoke on behalf of the prince with the king and gained forgiveness, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And when the prince offended the king for the 4th time, the friend felt powerless and said, "How long can I trouble the king? Perhaps he will not again accept advocacy for me." In other words, there is a limit to people's patience. So Rashi says that Moses lost his patience. Vayishma Moshe vayipol et panav, and Moses heard it and fell upon his face. So another French commentator, but 200 years later, the Torah scholar Chizkuni read this verse in a very different way. He said he was ashamed and put his face on the ground in order to offer a prayer. He hoped to receive a revelation from God on how to confront this challenge. So this understanding of Moses' leadership offers very, very different perspective. In Chizkuni's eyes, Moses was a leader who demonstrated willingness to look inside. Instead of getting his anger and frustration out to somebody else, he prostrated on the ground for a moment of self-reflection and prayer. It's a deeply emotional and very dramatic moment in the story. Well, perhaps sometimes the best gift we can give to loved ones or to our colleagues and friends is not to react immediately and give ourselves some time to think and reflect. Sometimes we need to take a moment and to think of what we can change in ourselves before accusing others. There is a famous anonymous text, so I couldn't find the author, but everywhere I looked it was signed as anonymous, but it's quite famous. When I was young, I wanted to change the world. I found it was difficult to change the world, so I tried to change my nation. When I found I couldn't change my nation, I started to focus on my town. I couldn't change my town, so I tried to change my family. Now, as I got older, I realized the only thing I can change is myself. And suddenly I realized that if long ago I had changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family. My family and I could have made an impact on our town. Their impact could have changed the nation, and I could indeed have changed the world. The Jewish version of a very similar story is a very well-known song, the song of Arik Einstein. And it was my first song that I understood in Hebrew, or learned in Hebrew. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. אני ואתה אז יבואו כבר כולם. אמרו את זה קודם לפניי, זה לא משנה. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. Me and you, we can change the world. Me and you. Then all others will come. It was already said before, it doesn't matter. Me and you, we will change the world. And it is with this message I would like to say to all of us really, Shabbat Shalom.